out there, and welcome to the Mitchell Sentinel podcast. It's a warm day here in Mitchell, up to 90-something. Hot enough, anyways. But today we're going to discuss some geological names. We've done it in the past. We're just going to go a little deeper, and we might wander off and wander back, or just wander. Who knows?
Sounds like it. I'd like to start off today with, as I look out the window of our basement studio here, I can see Bailey Butte. Now, this is the first Bailey Butte. It's just west of Mitchell, and it was named after Ezekiel Bailey, who homesteaded there. I think you've been to his homestead.
Well, which one is it? Because there's a couple behind Bailey Butte.
I think that it was probably the one the most closest to right behind Bailey Butte.
Where the poplar trees are there at the old...
Yeah.
There's a junction there that used to have a sign that said Mitchell one way and Gable Creek another.
Right. Yeah. Just up from that, there's where the trees are. That's where Bailey had his homestead.
I'll be dang.
Now, I've lived here all my life until we had that fire out on between Bear Creek and West Branch. I didn't know there was another Bailey Butte.
I didn't either, but I never tramped around that country. So
yeah, and it was named for another Bailey. It was named after Lee Bailey.
Okay.
So I don't know if they were related or whatever, but so we had two Bailey Buttes. But there's a lot of I got to checking around. Ball Mountain, for instance, I couldn't find it. Wasn't named for any family name Bald or nothing. It was just because it was lack of vegetation.
Yeah, lack of trees.
Yeah,
and that's out at Richmond.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it got balder after they had another fire out there and burned over the top of it, and so it's really bald now. Now some of these places are named after some of the people that lived around them, like Barnhouse Springs is a prime example. It was named after Jacob Barnhouse.
And Barnhouse Springs up on the Buck Point Road.
Right, yeah.
Headed up into the Forest Service. I don't know what that number is. We just always called it the Buck Point Road.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's 12 or something. I don't know the number.
We should know.
Well, about the time you learn them, the Forest Service changed the numbers. So.
Well, they did that 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, maybe they haven't changed it lately.
Maybe 30 years goes by pretty quick.
Yeah. And then you go on up from Barnhouse Springs and up over the top, and then you get into the Durr country. Now, these were named Durr Meadows, and I think at one time there might have been a little guard station there called Durr Guard Station. And it was named after the family Durr that settled, I think they settled not right there, but probably down in the lower country. But anyhow, the name transitioned up there to Durr Meadows. They probably had sheep or something up there, I would imagine, at one time.
It's pretty interesting how a lot of this lower ground remained private, and then the upper timber ground became Forest Service back in the day. Now, could you not homestead in those areas during the Homestead Act, or?
Well, they had what they call a timber claim later on, I think, but you could homestead there because it was all government land at the time that they'd stolen from the Indians, of course. But anyhow, I think they go up there, but the winters were really harsh there, and these people had to prove up on this homestead, so they would pick a place where they had pretty good water. That would be the first thing, where they could raise a garden and whatever they was going to eat, and a cow or something, because that. If they couldn't raise what they were eating, they were going to starve to death because there were no supermarkets. You couldn't, the nearest supply point was probably Fort the Dalles. So up there in that harsh country, I don't think there was too many.
Just the weather probably was the limiting factor.
Yeah, 4 or 5 feet of snow every winter, and
But it didn't stop the folks from doing it up at Big Summit Prairie.
No, that's true. But the Big Summit Prairie is a little different deal. They had the natural meadows up there, and so they could hay there, and they could. But it had to be hell. I've talked to some of the people that lived up there.
Those winters.
Yeah, my Uncle Charlie and Aunt Eunice Maxwell. They lived up there and wintered up there, and man, I tell you what, they were. And if you had something wrong, you ain't coming out. You can't.
You're stuck there.
You're stuck there.
Till the thaw.
And they fed. They had that hay. They'd put it up in the summer, and they took and built log structures to dump that hay in.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes they built them so that the cows could come in underneath it, and then they just pitched it down out of the mow and into the cows. But most generally, they just pitched it into a sled and took the sled out and fed the cows.
So they fed the cows all winter up there.
Yeah.
They didn't take them down to lower ground.
No. They stayed up there all winter and with them. And that's got to be hard on the cows, I would think. But I guess as long as you could feed them the hay and get them through, that was all it was. And then, we talked about this before, now how some of the names come from some of the different things and strange situations that may happen. We talked about the Way Meadow. And it's up in Waterman Flat country on the Fopiano Ranch, a little bit, I guess, a little north and a little west of it. And it was named for the notorious
Barry Way,
yeah, who robbed the gold train and killed Gallagher and hid the gold up there someplace between two trees. I was reading that the other day, between two trees. Now you go back and there's 2 million trees. Now, which two was it,
Yeah.
I know we talked about Jimmy and Bob Collins.
Looking for it.
Yeah, they was always going out there looking for it and everything, keeping their eye up. But, I don't know. If they found it, probably if anybody was smart, they didn't jump up and brag and say
Wouldn't tell anybody.
Yeah. I'd get me an old played out gold claim up at Antone someplace and bring in 4 or 5 nuggets every now and then.
Yeah, I would figure out something to do.
Yeah, right. Now we go out to the West Branch country, and a place called Courthouse Rock, which is on the old highway just below Mossy Rock. Now these two, they're in conjunction. They're a rocky ridge that runs down, and after the fire burned off, you can see them a lot better because
it's Mossy Rock Falls.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then there's Camel Rock there and Courthouse Rock.
Yeah. And that whole ridge is the Camel Rock looks like a camel just laying there up on the ridge.
And it's just this side of what used to be Beaver Guard Station.
Right. Yeah. I didn't look up why it was Beaver Guard Station, but I would just assume that Beaver probably had a dam there in the creek someplace. So.
What is that creek's name there? I should know that.
Okay, the Kelly Creek is the one that comes over the Mossy Rock Falls.
Okay.
And then Camp Creek comes down by the Beaver Guard Station. And then you go on over the next ridge, and that's West Branch. And then you go all over that next little ridge, and there's Slide Creek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
But, the old-timers named anything that looked stately and big and gigantic, they named it Courthouse. Now, there's a Courthouse Rock in Grant County. There's one in Wasco County, and there's one in Wheeler County. So
I recycled that name.
Yeah. I think they probably were homesick, maybe, and it kind of reminded them of their courthouse back at home and the courthouse square and everything. So it'd give them a little piece of what they came from.
Some sort of idea of civilization.
Now the Mossy Rock Falls, it's pretty much
There's moss on the rock.
Yeah, determining because
it's kind of green.
Yeah, it's kind of green when it comes over. My dad worked there in about 1946, I think.
At Beaver Guard Station?
At Beaver Guard Station. We lived there, and they had a little campground there at Mossy Rock. And they had picnic tables there, and I remember my dad built a place where you could dump your garbage in this pit. They had running water. This was before they discovered Girardi, and it didn't hurt you then, but now it makes you deathly ill if you drink that water. So they had to take the water out because it wasn't potable, they said. So, I remember my dad, Beaver Guard Station was just above it, and he'd go down there and work on that, and right above the Mossy Rock Falls, Paul Kelly built a logging road in there to get over that rocky ridge, so to get access to that timber up there in that area. And it's kind of a remarkable feat the way he did it, because there was no dirt. It was just rock ridges and just solid rock. Well, he went back in there and he drilled some holes back in that rock and everything, and he put some anchor pivot points in there and some steel and cables. And then he came out and he laid logs and hooked them to those cables, and actually the road is built on the logs.
Yeah, it's kind of neat up in there.
Yeah, and At the time, I think it was probably on Forest Service land, and they were getting the timber out of there, but it's mostly a lot of it was coming off the private land also. But the Forest Service, over the years, they went back in there and they closed that road and put a big gate on it because they didn't want somebody driving back in there, and that logs are starting to rot a little bit, and the cables are starting to rust, and so.
Well, I thought that was on private ground. You could still get up in there.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. I think you got to
There's
go.
a gate on the other side of that.
Yeah, I think that might be private, but you got to go through Forest Service to get there, and they didn't want the liability, so they eliminated it. But Bill Camel and Doug Woodard and Jack Grisham and a few of the other guys that grew up out there, they also had a swinging bridge that came underneath the falls. That they had a trail, and you go up this trail, and you get on a swinging bridge, and you go up.
Footpath?
Yeah, and then you could walk underneath near the falls and come out, and the trail came down on the other side and came back down to the road. But they told me that they would go up there and they'd get about 6 of them on that bridge, and then they'd start shifting their weight, and they made a real swinging bridge out of it because they could just swing it way out. But it was kind of a little bit rough because when it came back, it hit the rock rim and you would come to a jolting stop.
Well, was it for loggers heading up in there, or was it just for tourists?
Just for tourists and people going up to Mossy Rock and a little hiking trail. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's kind of nice.
Now, my dad also worked on Wildwood, which is above it. And it's still a forest camp today.
Yeah, we talked about Wildwood quite a bit last week.
Yeah, that's where they had a lot of the auxiliary picnics and stuff like that. So that was kind of cool.
It's weird none of the community events take place much in the Ochicos. Everything's kind of more Painted Hills focused.
I guess you probably don't get cell service up there, and your e-devices don't work too good up there. But it's a lot more to do than that up there.
Well, they don't work anywhere around here.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's cool. Hey, also, now, as we're going out there today on this little trip we're taking, you can look off as you come over the Ochicos and look to the east. You'll see...
on Highway 26, the new highway?
Yeah. You can see Black Butte and White Butte.
Yep.
Now, those... Black has got a lot more exposed rock to it, and it's a lot steeper. And there's some timbered ground up there.
There's quite a bit of timber up there. At least there was 35 years ago when I was there.
It's probably just gotten bigger, what hasn't been struck by lightning or something. But and Black Butte takes on the appearance of a real dark butte, so it's named for the blackness. Now, White Butte, it's a little different. It's got a little more, not quite so rocky. There is
different kind of rock.
Yeah, different kind of rock, and it has some dirt on it, and so the grass kind of grows up there. I remember once Coles had a burn up there, and it burned up White Butte and on top, and for about 3 or 4 days, it looked like it was kind of awakening as a volcano.
Was that the fire when you were a kid, or was that the last one?
No, the fire when I was a kid. The last one, it did the same thing, only a little worse. And on the backside of Black Butte, I found some pretty good rocks, like it's almost like slate. We've made some walls and stuff out of it.
Black Butte?
No, on White Butte.
Yeah.
So, I haven't been. Black Butte is it's not quite.
It's not accessible.
And not accessible as the other one. Yeah. Also, we have.
I've been to the top of both.
Have you?
Mm-hmm. Rode horseback halfway up Black Butte once.
Yeah, I think my machete's still laying up there. Isn't it?
That wasn't your machete though. It was mine.
Oh, it's your. Oh,
I bought it at a gun show in Pendleton, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
You wanted it though.
Yeah. I guess I can go look for it.
I looked for it pretty hard. I couldn't find it.
A little bit south of Mitchell, there's a distinct-looking formation that's called Lewis Rock. Now, Lewis Rock was named for Charles G. Lewis, who happened to be my great-great-grandfather. He settled there in 1887, and later, I don't know whether he proved up on his homestead and sold it, or he didn't prove up on it and left it. He left a pretty good orchard there, and he left that butte there with his name, or rock with his name on it. And so he moved on out to West Branchton and refiled on another piece of homestead. And the butte that is almost probably west or east of his place, his homestead, they called it Lewis Butte out there.
Oh, really? I didn't realize. Well, I guess I did know that.
Yeah,
Lewis Rock and then Lewis Butte.
Yeah, so he had two of these places,
which is right next to Richard Butte.
Yeah. Now Richard Butte, I couldn't find anything on. I don't know who it was named after.
Richard.
Well, yeah, but I don't know his last name.
Oh.
Yeah. And then going down the Painted Hills, which a lot of people are doing now, you travel down Sutton Mountain. Now, Sutton Mountain is, at its highest point, is about 4,680 feet tall. And it was named for Al Sutton, who settled there in 1865. And
1865?
Yep.
Wow.
He was one of the first ones in there. He probably came right after
Myers
and Hewlett. Yeah. He was English. He's from England. And then also at one time he not only owned actually both sides of the Sutton Mountain. Yeah, he owned over on the Roe Creek side too.
Well, there's a heck of a lot of homesteads up there. I've been to at least 6 up there.
Oh yeah. They and you notice one thing: most of them are around someplace where there was water.
Oh, well, who wouldn't put I wouldn't put a house next to a place with no water.
Yeah. So
the Cotton Gin place on this side has got a pretty good spring next to it.
That one place up Lamb Canyon a few years ago was a place where the
cartel had a big grow operation.
Yeah, they had a big marijuana farm there. Yeah.
And on top of that ridge, just a little over Mule Canyon, there's an old homestead there, which it isn't too close to water, but there's water down in the canyon. But that I think that's more of old sheep herder shed.
Yeah, that might have been it because they didn't take much. And as I look out my window, well, I can't see it from here, but there's Marshall Butte, which is a little bit north and east of our studio. I don't know exactly. I couldn't find too much out about it, but I'm thinking it's probably named for Alfred Marshall, who settled near the Butte in 1874. So, today, most of those buttes are owned by the BLM.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to take up a homestead and you're going to get 160 acres, you're dang sure not going to take something land's going to use up that mountain that you can't even raise a goat on. So
you're not going to want to use up unusable land.
Yeah, so most of these buttes today are isolated as they are as far as private land is all around them and everything, but most of them belong to the BLM.
But they were private land at one time because it was kind of consolidated in that big old BLM swap.
Yeah, I guess
in the early 80s.
Yeah. We had, and then we have another one a little bit almost directly, I guess it would be north of us, and it's called Tony Butte. It is named after the Tony family that settled out in that area. Now, most of these buttes are what they call volcano plugs.
Or cones, as in White Butte's thing.
Yeah, well, the lava would rise to the top, and then it would cool, and then kind of push up a little more, and then cool, and push up a little more. So now, consequently, you have this exposed butte. Now let's see.
Cones and plugs.
Yeah. Now we're going to go. Almost east of us now, along Keys Creek. And when you get to Keys Creek, you get to Keys Mountain,
which is the only volcano around.
Yeah, it's an extinct volcano.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at one time when it blew, if you look at it and you have anything like happened up at Mount St. Helens, you can just about see it.
It blew kind of like southwesterly, it seemed like.
Yeah, it did. It blew into what we say are the Ochicos today. It blew that way. And the mud flows actually did not come down this way. They went further south up against the Ochicos and then down what they call the Johnson Creek, which runs into Bridge Creek,
Oh, really?
and that's what they call the Johnson Creek mud flows.
I didn't know that. That's the geological term for it.
Yeah, yeah,
Huh.
yeah. So and some today you still find petrified wood backed up against the Ochoco some places, and I found one piece a few years ago that I've been digging on for, I guess, 20 years, and I got down about 4 feet. And somebody said, well, you might as well stop digging, because I said that might be the top.
Yeah. And that was
we got 160 feet to go.
Yeah, that was up at White Butte Ranch, right? Where Grandpa had it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's still there, I'm sure. Okay, now the Keys Mountain was named after James E. Keyes, who settled it there. And then, the mountain was named after Zachary Keyes, and the creek was named after James E. Keyes. But also there's another Keys Mountain in Wheeler County, right close to Mitchell, and it's over on Highway 207 going towards Fossil at what they call it's where the old Billy Keyes Ranch used to be.
Know which side of the road is that on?
That's on, where Russ Carson, he bought that piece from.
So that's what they call Keys Mountain there.
Yeah, right directly behind that old house, which it's burnt down now, but that big mountain right behind it, and it's across the canyon from Horse Mountain.
Yeah, separated by Shoefly Creek.
Right on. That's another thing, that Shoefly Creek makes you wonder how it got its name, but I guess maybe from the song, or maybe
shooing something off a horse. Shooing a fly off a horse.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Horse Mountain, Shoefly. But right above it, Shoefly Creek actually runs through a place called Limekill. Now, I didn't know much about Limekill until a few years ago. I went out there to shoot some coyotes because they were becoming a problem, and we went up in that area. Now, I don't know whether the Limekill is named after lime, Kill, or Kiln.
Lime kiln.
Yeah. So anyhow, it's Limekill now, I guess. So
that was a settlement.
I don't think it was a settlement per se. It was just over the hill from Richmond.
An area.
Yeah, an area.
How many houses were there?
Up from Walden.
There was houses there, though.
Well, there were homesteads there.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, there's a few remnants of them out there still today. Now, we coming down from Keys Mountain a little ways, we come up onto another little butte, which is not as big and dominant as a lot of the other ones around there, but it's called Peggy Butte. And now, I couldn't correlate how it got the name Peggy Butte when it was named for Margaret Reynolds.
I mean, is it her nickname?
No. Peggy is another name for Margaret.
It's a nickname?
Yeah, that's what somebody was telling me the other day.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I thought, well, hey, I learned something there I didn't know. Well, she was from Tennessee, and I'm sure she probably took up a homestead right near there. There's a couple of pretty good springs right near Peggy Butte. And there was another unnamed butte there, and so the Geological Survey were coming in, and they were doing this survey and didn't have no name on it. And I said, well, Peggy Butte there. And I said, I'm married to Mary. I said, could we maybe name that butte Mary Butte? Well, he said, you could, but, you'd have to kill her because you can't name it after a live person.
Is that real?
I don't know. That's what he told me.
I think he was pulling your leg.
Yeah. So I said, well, I can arrange that if she wants that butte named after her. But it's still known as No Name Butte now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can buy a star and name it after yourself too.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a little further out, ain't it?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to look on down past Bailey Butte and Mitchell Rock. Mitchell Rock was named after, Mitchell, and, it's kind of...
The town, the stately centurion that guards the entrance.
Yeah. Now, if you stop and look up at Mitchell Rock, or you lay down and on the old road, don't lay down on the highway, and look up at it, it looks like it's really tipping.
It is.
Yeah, and it comes almost like you, and some old boy come up through there, and he was drunk, and I don't know if he was in a wagon or a car, but anyhow, he made it as far as he could, so he laid down there in the wagon and everything. He woke up the next morning and looked up, my God, that mountain's falling on me.
I'd do it. I
Yeah.
heard Aunt Joyce tried to climb, or I think she did climb the front of it once when she was a little girl.
Yeah, it'd be a pretty good climb.
I don't think I'd want to do it.
I don't either. I didn't like getting up there when it was
On the backside?
from the backside, yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
You know, as we look on down further west from Bailey Butte, we come up on across Sergeant Butte. Now, Sergeant Butte is 3,300 feet tall, and it was named for Allie Sargent, which was no relation to the sergeant that plotted Mitchell.
Okay.
Yeah, and different one anyway, different family. But he homesteaded there in 1893.
Now, was that homestead right there where Jim Woodward's place is?
I would think so. Yeah.
Somewhere near there?
They and then behind it, Sergeant Butte is kind of dwarfed by Sand Mountain. Now, Sand Mountain is pretty much explained as it was named after the sand that the mountain looks kind of like.
It looks like a big pile of sand.
Yeah,
But
it does.
It's most
but
definitely not.
No, it most definitely not. It's a big sandy rock. That's
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah, it's
That,
rock-colored sand.
Kind of
yeah.
that blonde-looking rock.
Yeah, yeah. Now we're going to go a little bit further south now, and we're going to go up to Pisgah. Now, for most of you people know, Pisgah is a mountain in the Bible, but it's also a mountain in Polk County, Lane County, and Wheeler County.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, so they had, I guess, again, the people were biblical type people and remembered that name, and they got there and they said, we're going to call this mountain Pisgah. And Pisgah is in the country of Moab over in right near the Dead Sea. So that's where it came from in the Bible. Now,
What happened on Mount Pisgah in the Bible? Do you know?
I don't.
I don't either.
I don't know. That's next podcast.
I guess we'll have to figure that
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
why
yeah.
is it important?
Yeah. I'm sure something important happened there. I don't know. We have a place called up in Waterman Flat, which was named after the Waterman family, of course.
Which is north and east of Mitchell.
Right. Yeah. You know, at one time, Waterman, the town of Waterman, was had a hotel there, a big hotel, and a livery stable, a granary, school, and I couldn't figure out why would anybody want to settle up there. I said, well, it was on the main thoroughfare in Wheeler County at the time. There was no 207 to get to Fossil.
No 26.
Yeah, well, maybe in the Val Trail or something like that. But anyhow, you went down to
The Dallas Military
Dallas
Road.
Military Road. Yeah, so they'd go up to Waterman, and the hotel was built about a 2-day stay away from Fossil, the county seat, probably.
Mhm.
So they could go out through there and go out to Richmond and on to Fossil, or they could go on out and go down Parish Creek to Spray. So they had this big hotel there. And
And there's just over the hill from Caleb.
yeah, Caleb was on the Dalles Military Road,
Yeah.
and it was probably 3 or 4 miles from there as a crow flies. But anyhow,
And then on up to Camp Watson and then Antone.
yeah. But they had, there's a place up there. Now, if you ever get up there, you can see there's a spring comes across the road, and it's cold water and it's good water. Collins had a water trough on both sides that's fed by this stream. This spring comes from up on Ball Mountain, on just up, not
Comes
clear
off
on
the
Ball
back
Mountain,
side.
but back this way from Ball Mountain, and it's called Sheet Iron Jack Spring.
Sheet Iron Jack Spring.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and so at the Oregon Geographic Names, I looked in there, and they said that they talked to Lily Fopiano Collins, and she said that she was one of the first to settle up there and everything. She said that it was named after an old man that built a cabin up there, and he covered the roof with tin. And at the time, tin was called sheet iron.
Oh, okay.
So the man's name was Jack. So that's how the sheet iron Jack.
Well,
spring
that's
came
kind of cool.
Yeah. And then, is there any other things you want to talk about? Some of the names and places I might have forgotten?
Wow, there's so many. And it's crazy. There's so much that we don't know, too, that, you always learn. Like the Bailey Butte example out there on 26.
Yeah, we lived here all our life and didn't know it. There's another place. What's this? I was trying to think what the place is out there.
Well, there's tons of juniper buttes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, every place that Juniper grew up on a butte, they call that Juniper Butte.
Now it's not that extraordinary.
No.
There's juniper everywhere.
Yeah, well, soon to be eradicated. Let's see. I was trying to think if there's any other mountains or buttes. Well, we got Bird Rock.
Bird Rock's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Down on the John Day at Burt Ranch.
Yeah. It's a pretty dominant feature when you're going down through there. And it was named after, you'd think, birds. You see a lot of birds. You'll see white stuff spattered all over the road.
Spelled different. It's
yeah,
B-Y-R-D.
Yeah, it's named after a family of birds that lived down there, and they homesteaded there probably back in the 1870s.
Well, and I've heard it called Bird Point. I've always called it Bird Rock.
Yeah, I have too.
That's just potato.
Yeah.
But, it's like the Priest Hole is not where the Priest Hole originally was. That was originally Boomerang Beach, and the Priest Hole was around the bend.
The Priest Hole was right at the mouth of Shaw Canyon, because Father Conway, who the Priest Hole was named after, used to fish there, and that was the best hole in the river. And they had I guess it might have been the flood of 56, or maybe a little later. They had a lot of water come down Shaw Canyon, and when it emptied into the river, it filled the hole and ruined it. So,
yeah, the priest didn't.
So the priest
there no longer.
No, wasn't nothing there. It was all just pretty shallow water. But so he moved on up to the other end of the river.
I always heard that it was called that. I always heard it called when I was a kid Boomerang Beach.
Yeah, that was named after the Californians that came out and bought it, and they changed the name of that ranch from the Conley Ranch to Line Bar.
Okay.
And they were the ones that named. They had I remember. You go down there and they had a boomerang nailed to a tree down there, and so there it became the Boomerang Beach.
Gotcha. Now, did they let the locals go down there and swim when they owned it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they did.
I don't remember ever not being able to go there.
Yeah.
And it just seemed kind of like it was the town swimming hole for so long.
Yeah, well, when Conley's had it, they had it locked up. There was nobody. Oh. There was nobody went in there except my dad, myself, and Father Conway.
Oh, okay.
We had pretty much an exclusive on it. My dad had worked for Steve Conley, so he kind of had an in with him, and
gotcha.
So we got to go down there, and James Conley liked to fish also, so we'd sometimes fish together.
When they owned a lot of property, didn't they?
Well,
they had stuff up in Ochicos. They had the Line Bar up there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was their sheep allotment in the summertime.
Yeah. They're Irish.
Irish, yeah. And old Steve, he came from Ireland. So
he still had the accent.
Oh, yeah. He had the Irish brogue, let me tell you. I remember my dad would go down there and Mary Conley, which was the sister to James and John, and she was a cook. She never married. And we'd go down, and they had, man, I tell you what, they had great meals. My dad would go down and help them with the lambs and stuff. Just not he was that good a help, but he just enjoyed being around. Yeah, and he had done it when he was a kid out of high school, and so, yeah, he knew what he was doing. He said he would set those sheep up, and when they mark them, they use their teeth.
Yeah, they cut their scrotum off and then take the teeth, pull it out.
Yeah,
it's about the most sanitary way to do it.
Yeah, I guess unless you're the one, unless they're your teeth. My dad said he.
Well, I mean sanitary for the sheep, because if you reached your hand in there, you're gonna create an infection.
But anyhow, Dad said he would shed up. He would set up they'd set these lambs up for him, and then he'd hold them while they was doing this stuff. And he said he'd find the nastiest ones and set up for Steve when he was doing it.
I just used to do that for Pat Perry on occasion.
Yeah, I just never did want to do it. But I did enjoy eating those things. They were pretty
Grandpa
good.
loved the hell out of them.
Yeah, you'd fry them up good, and then they'd just pop and snap and crack, and you'd put them in eggs, or you just eat them with a little ketchup on them, and it was pretty darn good. Well, let's see. Is there anything? Oh, Sheep Mountain. We can talk about Sheep Mountain, maybe.
Well, that's up by Dayville.
No.
That's Sheep Rock.
Yeah.
Where's Sheep Mountain then?
The Sheep Mountain is the big loaf-looking mountain that's right above what Mitchell Sand Shed, what they call the Oregon State Department of Transportation Sand Shed. There's a big.
Were they when they were building the highway? They took the cat up there to push the gravel off.
No. This is nothing's ever been up there. It's on the Bear Creek Ranch.
Langer
owns it.
Okay,
it's between West Branch and Bear Creek.
Bear Creek.
Yeah, and they call it Sheep Mountain because I'm sure that's probably where the sheep.
Yeah, and it's a big bald kind of almost bald mountain.
Yeah, and then it's just down this side from Stevenson Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very important mountain in this county.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was named for Thomas Jefferson Stevenson, who settled on Bear Creek in 1870.
Okay, and now let's see. Now he had a son named Tom.
Yep,
and I knew him.
Yep,
Tom
and anyhow, he when he wasn't working the ranch and everything, he was a miner, and he would mine. He was over in the Scissorsville area.
Now, where's that?
That's right up from Ochoco Ranger Station, the old one. The old one.
Next to the old log.
Yeah, the Mayflower mine.
Okay.
Where they had the big mine over there. Yeah, so they would, he would work over there sometimes and then come home and do the ranch, and he kind of get his cash flow up that way, I'm thinking. Yeah, so, Stevenson Mountain they cut a lot of timber on that, and they actually did some mining out there for Cinnabar and...
Well, it might be on that same vein that Horseheaven Mine is, because it's just over the hill from there.
Yeah, not too far. Yeah. So that Stevenson Mountain is pretty important in the history. There's a lot of volcanic activity happened there, and then on up the road a ways where the Valley View Mine is, and the Lucky Strike Mine, and where all the thunder eggs are formed.
And then further over towards Prineville, it's where Steen's Pillar is.
Yeah, but I can't remember her name, but Shirley Quant's mother, Granny, I called her Granny Quant. She's one of the first ones that discovered the thunder eggs up there. She was one of the first rock hounds into this area. Yeah. So there's a lot of. In fact, I think the city of Prineville has some claims up there where you can dig for free.
I'll be dang.
And then you go on over to the hill a little bit over on the Mill Creek area, and you'll run into a whole different kind of thunder egg. And then if you drop down into Trout Creek on the other side, you can find thunder eggs, petrified wood, all kinds of stuff. And then you get into the Madras, Ashwood, Antelope area.
Oh, yeah.
You can find the Pridey eggs and all that stuff. Yeah, a lot of rock stuff over there on that side.
Well, there's a reason why Oregon State comes out here every year. Well, at least they used to.
Yeah.
Until the COVID.
Yeah, and they do their field work here. They've been coming. I remember in 1956, before they had a permanent camp here, they were camped out what we call the old Keys place out on the flat.
The haunted house.
Yeah, they were camped out there, and that flood came down that canyon, and it scattered pots, pans, tents, all their equipment and everything, all the way down Myers Canyon.
I'll be dang.
They were 2 or 3 days trying to get all their equipment straightened up, and probably never did find a lot of it.
Probably right.
Yeah, but the old professor, he was pretty tough. Didn't bother him too much. He had them kids out there looking for it and doing it, putting it all back together the next day. So
nice. Yeah. Well, that sounds like a pretty good spot to stop there, but we'll revisit more of these geological or geographical names and geological, I suppose.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okie doke.
Okay, well, we hope we've give you a little more information on this country. We've had this week we've had a lot of people up here, most of them from Portland. And I can't blame them for wanting to be up here and out of that down there. So not the COVID and the protests and all that stuff. So I hope they enjoy it, and I hope they keep wearing their mask.
Yeah, we don't want it here.
Because knock on wood, we still do not have a case in Wheeler County, one of the only county to not have this. So we hope we can keep it COVID free.
Yes.
I said I said it probably won't affect most people in Wheeler County because it is a human disease. So we might be immune to it.
It's hard saying.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll just sign off now, and
yeah,
may the good Lord take a good liking to you.
All right.